A very good, a very good evening to all my dear students. I welcome you all to the sixth batch for live coaching classes. And I am CA Nancy Singla, and I'll be taking few of the chapters of your paper number 6, which is the name of the subject is Auditing and Assurance. So I can see a number of you have already joined. Uh, Jyoti is here, Jayendra, Shubho, Anki, Shivani, Anish, Madhav, Gomati. A very good evening to all my dear students. I hope you all are fine and I hope you all are ready to study hard, right? So students, before taking up the discussion for chapter number 1 of auditing and assurance subject, which is scheduled for today's session, first of all, I would like to request you all to please take full advantage of these sessions, which have been organized by Board of Studies of ICAI, especially for you and your benefit. Okay? So for that, you need to give your next 2.5 hours to me. You need to listen to these lectures with the full concentration, right? And yes, obviously, you will have to make this session very interactive by posting on the queries, whatever you have during the session, right? Now, students, before starting with the session, let me just tell you about the paper of auditing and assurance subject. So it is a 100 marks core paper, right? And it consists of two parts. Part 1 is MCQ based, which is for 30 marks. I've shared my screen, and the rest 70 marks will be in the form of descriptive questions, right? This includes, these 70 marks includes your correct, incorrect also, right? And incorrect and incorrect, you need to give reasons also. Okay? So students, see, definitely auditing and assurance subject, which is a very new subject for all of you, since you are doing this subject for the first time. This is a theory subject, but with 100% practical implementation. When you will be doing your articleship, you will be going for audit in your articleship, or once you become chartered accountant and you will be conducting the audits, students, you will see that whatever we are going to study here theoretically, you will be implementing the same practically in the real life audit situations, right? And further, in your finals, you have paper number 3, advanced auditing and professional ethics. So whatever we are going to study at this intermediate level, that will be a foundation for your paper number 3 of finals, right? So I hope that you are able to understand and conclude as to how important is this subject, auditing and assurance. I know that this is a very new subject for all of you. And as and when we will go through these chapters, it might be possible that you might have certain doubts, you might have certain queries since you are studying this chapter for the first time. For that, what is the provision available? You can always post in your queries. Okay? And it is my humble request that please send in all your queries. Your queries will be answered either in the session itself or in the next session. Okay? So I can see many of you, many new students have joined. Farha, Rohit, Harini, Dhyanesh, Ayushi, Sayed, Ayushi, Neha, Kanhaiya. A very good evening to all of you. Yes, so many of you are saying, ma'am, please use Hindi. Jyoti, I will definitely use Hindi. And for all those who are comfortable in English, I will repeat what the same thing in English also, right? And so students, your queries as to how to study this subject, everything will be resolved as and when we will proceed with our further chapters. Okay? So this is the first session today. So this is the first session, Hana. As and when we will proceed with the chapters, we will be discussing as to how to learn, how to prepare for the examination. Why? Because students, it do happen that, see, the understanding part, the concept clarity will be done in the sessions, no doubt. But students often come and say that, ma'am, we have understood, but we are not able to write in the paper. Why? Because in this subject, students' understanding is required, but learning after understanding is most required for this paper. You need to learn after understanding. Cramming is something which I am not recommending, but yes, learning after understanding is required. Why? Because you will be fetching the marks for what you will be writing in your exams. Okay? So as many of you are saying, ma'am, this is the new subject for us, how to study this, how to prepare for exams. So be with me, give your 100% concentration for the next 2.5 hours. Do the homework that will be given to you. Keep on sending your queries, and whatever queries you have related to the preparation for auditing and assurance subject, the faculties are with you. We will be guiding you throughout, right? And students, I will be referring to the ICAI module as the base. We will be covering the entire ICAI module. Apart from this, on the BOS knowledge portal, there are revision capsules, there are RTPs, MTPs. So I request you all should go through all those questions in the MTP, RTP suggested papers and the revision capsules, which gives a bird eye view of the entire, like some chapters are discussed there. So a summary is given of the chapters, which will definitely help you in revising the chapters, right? So as and when we'll proceed further with the chapters, so your technique should be that once we complete one chapter, you should go through the entire chapter from the module. Apart from that, go to the revision module, the revision capsules that are available on the BOS knowledge portal. Go through the past examination questions also, right? Further, students, I will be sharing with you the practice question, maybe in the next session for this chapter, which will cover the case scenarios, which will cover your descriptive questions, MCQ, and true false. And if the time will permit, we will definitely discuss all those practice questions. Otherwise, I'll be giving the reference answer sheet to you. I'll be uploading that on the app, right? So please go through them, those questions, right? And in order, like I can see there are a number of queries that, ma'am, how to write in exam. So see, this is the first session. But yes, if you are so much, you want to know as to how to fetch good marks, how to write in the exam. So from the very first chapter, when you will get the practice question, you should practice, learn and practice those questions by writing the descriptive type questions also. So try to write the questions, right? After learning, you should write those answers. Why? Because then it will give you a practice of at least 2-3 months, whereby you must have practiced at least 50 questions by writing. Then in the examination, when you will sit and write the answer, so you have practiced writing it so many times, like 50 questions you have already practiced, then writing the paper is going to be a cakewalk for all of you, right? So students, as and when the query will come, I'll definitely take that up. But abhi ke liye, wishing you all the very best for your preparation and hoping that you all will pass your exams and this subject with flying colors. On a very positive note, let us start with the chapter which is scheduled for today, which is chapter number 1, nature, objective, and scope of audit. So there is one query which I would like to take here. So the name is Mr. Joshi, and the query is, will there be practical based questions? So students, see, practical based questions will definitely come. And in fact, when I've written here that 30 marks will be MCQ based, Here you will be getting two case scenarios, right? And certain general MCQs. Okay? And in descriptive type questions also, you may get a question whereby some practical example is given, and then you are asked to write the answer for that practical life situation. So definitely you will definitely get what the questions based on practical life audit situations. And for that, students, we will be discussing a number of examples in our sessions. Further, in your module also, a number of illustrations, examples, case scenarios are discussed. Hana? So if you go through all those and then apply your mind and think the answer and then confirm it from what is written in the module, that practice is going to help you prepare for what? For your practical, like the questions based on practical audit situations. Okay? So ठीक है. Now with respect to the paper, I'll definitely discuss the queries that you are sending me with respect to how the paper will come and everything. And in fact, we will discuss the last year paper also, so that you get familiar with the question paper also. So, but that I'll be taking up in the sessions to come. So right now we will be starting with the topic, the chapter, which is nature, objective and scope of audit. Okay? So be with me, keep on sending your queries and listen to this session attentively. Now, let us have a look at the name of this chapter, which is nature, objective and scope of audit. Okay? So tell me what you understand by the term nature. So basically, students, when we discuss nature of audit, we are going to discuss about the meaning, the characteristics of audit. Okay? Then objective, quickly send in your replies. Objective, say what do you mean? How many? Quickly send in your replies. Objective of audit में objective. The term objective, what is meant by? Yes. So Shivani is saying aim, or I can say purpose. So here we'll be discussing what is audit. Here we'll be discussing why audit, right? And scope. Scope we will be discussing the extent, the coverage of audit. Okay? So one by one we'll be discussing these things, and we will be discussing in detail today about the definition of term audit. Okay? So tell me, like my first question relating to this topic, tell me who is responsible to prepare financial statements of a company, let's say in our example, A Limited. So there is a company A Limited which is engaged in the business of manufacture of cycles. Tell me who is responsible to prepare the financial statements of the company. I'll give you two options. One is the management of that company, and the other is the auditor of that company. Tell me, quickly send in your replies. So I can see that Nikhil is saying management, Dhyanesh is saying management, Jyoti is saying management, Pranav is saying chartered accountant. Who started accountant? Like the auditor or the management started accountant, Pranav? So it is the See, it will be the person who is related to day-to-day activities, who is aware about the day-to-day activities, day-to-day functioning of the company. So it is the management who is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements of the company. Okay? Now, what we are understanding that why there is a concept of audit. ठीक है, so we are trying to understand why there is a concept of audit. ठीक है, पता चलेगा ना कि audit क्यों करवाना है. ठीक है, उसके बाद समझेंगे हम कि audit करेगा कौन. ठीक है, so now tell me, management of A Limited, it approaches a bank for a loan with the financial statements which are prepared by management of A Limited. ठीक है, the bank manager looks at the financial statement of A Limited and he is doubtful. What is the doubt in his mind? That A Limited has approached me for a loan. And if I look at the financial statement, they give a very good picture that the company is earning profits. Okay? Now, the bank manager is skeptical. He is doubtful as to whether to give the loan or not. Why? Because he is unable to trust. He is unable to rely on the financial statements which have been prepared by the management of A Limited, and A Limited wants the loan. So A Limited will definitely want to give a very good picture to the banker, to the bank manager, and bank manager is now doubtful as to whether to give that loan or not, right? So now there can be one option available to the bank manager. Bank manager may ask the management of A Limited that management, listen, please get these financial statements checked by an expert. Get these financial statements checked by an expert. Give me those checked financial statements. Then based on those checked financial statement, I can grant you a loan, right? Right? Now, management approaches the expert, and here comes the role of audit. So this expert is an auditor. So management approaches this person, this chartered accountant, this auditor, this expert in accounts and auditing, and asks the person to check the financial statement, or I can say to audit the financial statement and give a checked and signed financial statement. That is, earlier, the management of A Limited, they were presenting the financial statements to the branch manager. But now, after this person checks the financial statement and puts the signature on such financial statement and give his audit report, such financial statements become audited financial statements. Now, since these statements have been checked and signed by an expert, the bank manager is now willing to rely on such statements. So see the credibility of the financial statements. The reliability of such financial statement increases when they become audited. Why? Because now these have been checked by the expert. Now these have been checked by an auditor. So this is the situation where the role of the auditor comes. Okay? Now students, here the bank manager or the bank is one of the users of financial statements. Quickly send in your replies. Send me examples of some other users of financial statements or users of audited financial statements. Quickly send in your replies. Quickly send in your replies. Quickly send in your replies. So students, I'm waiting for replies and I hope that you all have understood so far. ठीक है. अभी we have not discussed anything technical or anything from the module as such. We are just building our foundation as to why audit, है ना. What is the concept of audit in a very layman language? We are understanding this concept. ठीक है. So yes, many of you are writing. Mohammed is saying creditors can be one of the users of financial statement. Mayank is saying investors, the shareholders and the prospective shareholders, they can be the users. Shivani is saying employees, which is absolutely correct. Jalab Bihani is saying government authorities, which is also correct. Then Yukti is also saying government. Rohit Murtaza is saying they are also saying government. Jyoti is saying creditors, employees, investors. Kritana is saying tax authorities, which is all like all these answers are absolutely correct. Okay? So students, so there is a company, there are users of financial statements, and in fact the management is also one of the users of the financial statement. Na? Management ko bhi to pata chale na that what is the performance of the company during the year. So when the auditor checks the financial statement and puts the signature and give his report, these audited financial statements become more trustworthy, more reliable, and that is why audit, there is a concept of audit, right? And students, in fact, in medieval times in Britain, see students, earlier in medieval times, these accounts, the auditors used to give their opinion after hearing to the accounts. Hai. Earlier, there was manual bookkeeping concept, right? So they used to hear the accounts, and based on that hearing, the auditors of those times, they used to give their opinion as to whether the personnel, the organization personnel, whether they have prepared or whether they are fraudulent or not, right? So the term audit has been derived from a Latin word audire. The meaning is what? To hear. So why like to hear? I have told you that in medieval times, the auditor used to listen. They used to hear to the financials, to the accounts that were prepared by the organization's management. And based on that hearing, the auditor used to decide as to whether the financial statements are, or whether the personals who are managing the funds, and whether they are fraudulent or not, right? So audit is derived from a Latin word which audire, which means to hear. Okay. Now, students, you have understood that management is responsible for preparation and presentation of financial information. So, students, here, before starting with the definition of the term audit from the module, what I'll do is I'll discuss with you few concepts which you will, the knowledge of which will be required when we are understanding the definition of term audit and the objectives of audit. Okay? So I'll take up those terms individually one by one, and after discussing all those terms, we will be going to the definition that is given in your module. Now, students, there is a concept of internal control. There is one concept, internal control, and in fact, internal control. In fact, in chapter number 4 of your syllabus, you will be discussing, you will be doing this topic in detail. Now, internal control. Okay? So, the management of an organization. So, let us take example of A Limited here. So, the management of A Limited prepared the financial statement. They prepared the financial statements of the company, right? Now, let us say the management has a doubt, management skeptical that with respect to traveling bills, this is an example, which are being, for which reimbursement has been given to the employees, the management feels that there can be a situation whereby the employees give fake bills. Okay? So management has implemented a rule within the company that when the traveling bills will be approved, they will be reimbursed to the employees, Then the traveling bills up to rupees 10,000. For that, if an employee submits a traveling bill reimbursement for rupees 10,000, it need to be signed by the immediate boss only, right? However, if it exceeds rupees 10,000, the same need to be signed by the immediate boss plus the HOD of the department. So this is what? This is an internal control. And who has implemented it? The management. Because management is involved in preparing and presenting financial statement. Now, management is aware about the day-to-day activities. So management will be in a position to design, implement, and maintain internal control. Hana? So abhi ke liye just try to understand. In fact, if I give you example of a like internal control not related to financial statements. So let's say when you enter a mall, or when you enter a metro station, there are metal detectors. Hana? So what is that? Again, one of the internal controls implemented by the metro or by the mall management. Hana? Why? Because they want to keep a control over the entry of the persons within the, let's say, the premises, right? So that is a non-financial control, internal control. And who has implemented it? The management, right? So I gave you example of traveling bills, है ना? कि bills कोई fake bill तो नहीं आ रहा है. उसके लिए management has said that with respect to the bills exceeding rupees 10,000, 2 signatories will be signing the bills. So this is again what? Internal control. Who is responsible for designing, implementing, and maintaining of internal control? Again, it is the management who is responsible for the design, implementation, maintenance of internal control. Okay? And you know that the auditor is not responsible for these two things. इतना तो समझ आ गया ना कि auditor is not responsible for preparation, presentation of financial information, and auditor is not responsible for design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control. Okay? So quickly till here, send in your replies whether it is clear or not. Students, I definitely need your answers to proceed further. Hana? And you may not find these topics in your module, chapter number 1 as such. But since as and when we'll proceed further with chapter number 1, the understanding of these topics will be required. That is why I'm taking up these topics right now. So I need your replies whether whatever we have done is clear or not. Send in your replies. So students, Akriti, Yukti, Shivani, Chandan, Jyoti, all are saying ma'am clear. Chalo good. Okay? Now students, let me just ask you one question. When we are saying that management is responsible for preparation and presentation of the financial statements. See, financial information kya hota hai? Whatever financial information, sales related, purchases related, whatever information is available, when all that information is put in a structured format, balance sheet, profit and loss, cash flow, fund flow, they become what? Financial statement. Hana? Now we are saying that management is responsible for preparation and presentation of financial statements. Tell me, is there any rule, regulation, or any policy or anything that the management is required to follow when they are preparing and presenting the financial information? Tell me, is there any thing like that? Any standard, anything like that? Quickly send in your replies. So yes, accounting standards are there. Ind AS are there. There might be companies where IFRS is applicable, US GAAP is applicable. So what are all that? So these are what? Financial reporting framework. The reporting framework, right? Just a minute. So I can see Chandan, Aftab, many of you have answered correctly. Yes, ma'am, accounting standards. Yes, which is absolutely correct. Okay? So financial reporting framework. Okay? Now, see, the reporting framework which has been adopted by, who will adopt it? Management, in preparing and presenting financial statement, and that is acceptable also, है ना? Acceptable होना चाहिए ना, as per the law, the laws and regulations, and it is adopted by the management. So that financial reporting framework becomes applicable financial reporting framework. ठीक है? So students, when an auditor, he is checking the financial statement, at that time, auditor will keep in mind the applicable financial reporting framework, because उसी को तो check करना है ना कि applicable financial reporting framework के according financial statements prepare हुए हैं या नहीं. ठीक है? So financial reporting framework is what? The rules, the regulations, the policies by which the management has to follow to prepare, to present the financial statement, applicable financial reporting framework. ठीक है? अभी के लिए इतना ही समझो. वैसे this topic is in detail in your chapter number 11. ठीक है? तो अभी हमने internal controls we have understood, which is in detail where in chapter number 4. Applicable financial reporting framework अभी के लिए समझा, but which is in detail in chapter number 11. ठीक है? तो इतना पता चला. क्या पता चला अभी तक? कि मैनेजमेंट रिस्पॉन्सिबल है प्रिपरेशन ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट, प्रिपरेशन एंड प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट as financial reporting framework. Management is responsible for design, implementation, maintenance of internal control. ठीक है? And auditor is not responsible for these two things. इतना समझ आया? ठीक है, आया. ठीक है? तो ऑडिटर को क्या करना है? ऑडिटर को चेक करना है that whether the financial statements are prepared as per the financial reporting framework. Auditor has to check whether there are any misstatement in the financial statements. ठीक है? Now tell me, what do you understand by the term misstatement? क्या समझ आता है? Misstatement क्या होता है? Quickly send in your replies. Misstatement क्या होता है? ठीक है? तो देखो अभी we have 3-4 more concepts which you need to imbibe. These are the foundation of this auditing and assuring subject, है ना? In fact, after understanding these concepts now, you will be able to understand the very first definition of this syllabus, which is the definition of term audit. ठीक है? तो बताओ misstatement क्या होता है? Quickly send in your replies. So see, again misstatement वाला concept भी ना हम यहीं से derive करते हैं. So it is, misstatement is the difference between the reported amount, classification, presentation. ये सब you need not write it, just listen to me carefully. है ना? एक बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, लिखना नहीं है किसी को, है ना? सो इट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द रिपोर्टेड अमाउंट, क्लासिफिकेशन, प्रेजेंटेशन, डिस्क्लोजर. तो जो रिपोर्ट किया है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में एंड द अमाउंट, क्लासिफिकेशन, प्रेजेंटेशन, डिस्क्लोजर as was required by applicable financial reporting framework. तो जो applicable financial reporting framework के according whatever amount was supposed to be mentioned in the financial statement, whatever classification, presentation or disclosure was required by the applicable financial reporting framework, अगर उससे कुछ अलग किया है मैनेजमेंट ने, अगर उससे कुछ अलग रिपोर्ट किया है, so difference between what is reported and what is required by the applicable financial reporting framework, उसको क्या बोलते हैं? misstatement. and auditor को तो वही misstatement ढूंढना है ना? अब बैंक मैनेजर को नहीं पता ना फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स के बारे में ज्यादा, शेयर होल्डर्स को नहीं पता ना ज्यादा, गवर्नमेंट को ज्यादा, एज सच दे आर नॉट एक्सपर्ट इन अकाउंटिंग एंड ऑडिटिंग एज सच ना. सो उसके लिए इसीलिए तो एक्सपर्ट को अपॉइंट किया ना कि देखो दैट वेदर देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन द amount required by the applicable financial reporting framework and the reported amount, और वो ही होता है क्या? misstatement. Now further students, this misstatement can be what? It can be either fraud or error. Now my next question to you, tell me what is the difference between the term fraud and error? एक simple सा difference होता है, बताओ क्या होता है? ठीक है. सो फ्रॉड इज ऑलवेज व्हाट, इंटेंशनल, है ना, जानबूझ के करते हैं ना फ्रॉड. एरर इज व्हाट, अनइंटेंशनल. ठीक है. सो वी एज ऑडिटर्स वी आर कंसर्न्ड विद मिसस्टेटमेंट्स. In fact, I would like to say that we as auditors, we are concerned with dash misstatements. That dash I'll fill in after you have understood the concept of misstatement. Okay? So we are, as auditors, we are concerned with misstatements, whether due to fraud or error. फ्रॉड की वजह से है या एरर की वजह से है. इम्पैक्ट ऑन फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स तो आ रहा है ना. सो इट इज आवर ड्यूटी टू consider that impact to find that misstatement. ठीक है, clear? हाँ, तो many of you have answered it 100% correctly that fraud intentionally होता है and error unintentionally होता है. ठीक है. Now my next question to you, tell me, are we as auditors or what do you understand that are we concerned with the misstatement of let me take an example of ₹10 out of the total, let's say, turnover of ₹1,000 crores? बताओ, क्या ये भी देखें? So Ashwin, please send in your replies again, because I can see a number of you and I'm happy that a number of you are sending me the replies, which is, students, very good. But it might happen that that many of your replies I am not taking your names individually, because there are a number of replies. So Ashwin, you can send in your reply or comment again if I missed it. तो बताओ. हाँ, ठीक है. So now the next concept is that we as auditors or the auditors are concerned with dash misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and the answer to this fill in the blank is what? Material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. ठीक है, material misstatement whether due to fraud or error. ठीक है. हमें ये जो यूजर्स ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स हैं, इनको यही तो बताना है ना कि फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ट्रू एंड फेयर है या नहीं, है ना. तो उसके लिए वी विल बी लुकिंग एट द मटीरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट्स, है ना. एंड स्टूडेंट्स, as and when we'll proceed, you will see that there are standards on auditing. In fact, I've mentioned this as another term, standards on auditing. अब ये क्या होते हैं अभी हम डिस्कस करेंगे. But essay 320 is there, which is in your course with respect to materiality, है ना. और वहां पे it is explained that material क्या होता है ना. तो the first part says that anything will be considered as material if it is defined as material in the applicable FRF. अगर FRF ने बोल दिया कि that is material, तो auditor is concerned about that. Auditor के लिए भी वो material हो जाएगा. ठीक है. And let's say if it is not mentioned in the applicable financial reporting framework, then anything will be considered as material if it has an influence on the economic decision of the users of financial statement, है ना. So what is this? I'll just explain it to you, है ना. वैसे you will be we will discuss this topic in detail in chapter number 2, है ना. But since the very first topic has this material word, तो इसीलिए I am discussing it. So material क्या है? या तो जो applicable FRF में define किया गया है, ठीक है. And if it is not defined, then anything that has an influence on the economic decision of the users of the financial statement, है ना. So let us take an example of bank only. So whether the bank will give the loan or not, है ना, it might be dependent upon various items which are present in the financial statement. So since those items have an effect on the economic decision of the bank manager, so that becomes material, है ना. Let's take another example, shareholder. Whether to hold the share or sell the share, तो यही तो economic decision है ना of the shareholder. It is dependent upon various items which is present in the financial statement. So those items that have an effect on the economic decision of the shareholder, that becomes what? Material. So we as an auditor, we are concerned with material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. What is material? See, it depends upon the nature of the item, it depends upon the size of the item, it depends upon the applicable FRF and a number of things which you will learn in essay 320 in chapter number 2. Okay, so for the purpose of this chapter, chapter number 1, itna is sufficient, which I hope is now clear to all of you. Okay, so dekho abhi na please don't ask me ki that where is everything written in the module, है ना. इससे flow थोड़ा सा just try to understand, है ना, जो भी अभी हद तक हमने डिस्कस किया. तो I'll just quickly repeat, है ना, हमने क्या डिस्कस किया. तो सबसे पहले हमने देखा that it is the management of A Limited who is responsible for preparation and presentation of financial information as per the applicable FRF. ठीक है. And it is the management who is responsible for design, implementation and maintenance of internal control. Okay? Auditor has nothing to do as such in preparation of presentation or in designing, implementation and maintenance of internal control. Okay? I'm talking about statutory auditor here, external auditor. Okay? Applicable financial reporting framework समझ आता है, which the financial reporting framework which is in adopted regulation. We as auditor, we are concerned with the material misstatement. A misstatement क्या होता है? The difference between the amount, presentation, disclosure, classification as per the applicable FRF required and the reported amount. जो applicable FRF ने कहा है, required है, ऐसा लिखा है उसमें, and जो actually management ने किया है. If there is a difference, then this is what misstatement, है ना. It can be due to fraud and error, and we as auditor we need the misstatement whether it is due to fraud or error. ठीक है. And we are concerned with what? Material misstatement, है ना. Clear है इतना? Quickly send in your replies. Is it clear? Now students, when you will study the objectives of audit now, and in fact, I told you the name of this subject is what? Auditing and assurance. है ना? Students, abhi you might feel that I am discussing topics from here and there, but just wait, just another 10-15 minutes. Then we will put together all these topics and you will be happy to know that आपको सब कुछ बहुत अच्छे से समझ आया. ठीक है? So auditing and assurance. Now my next question to you is, tell me what is meant by assurance. Assurance क्या होता है? So for all those who are saying, ma'am, network में कोई issue है, तो in fact I can see only 2 of the students are saying this. So please refresh your page. ऐसा हो सकता है that there is some network issue at your end, है ना? FRF, if I'm saying it is financial reporting framework, है ना? जो भी financial reporting framework applicable है to the organization, that is what your applicable FRF. So students, assurance को अगर मैं हिंदी में बोलूँ ना, it means तसल्ली, है ना? Or I can say to obtain satisfaction. Or confidence. So when I as an auditor, I have to give some satisfaction, confidence to the users of the financial statement. So students, that is not possible unless and until I am confident about the financial statement. पहले I should be confident ना कि हाँ financial statements true and fair है. तभी तो I'll be able to give my report to the users of the financial statement that financial statement true and fair है. ठीक है? तो the term assurance is what? Satisfaction or confidence. So first I as an auditor I need to obtain that confidence. और वो कैसे आएगा? I will perform certain procedures on the financial statements. I will check the financial statements. उसके बाद I'll be satisfied that ठीक है, financial statement true and fair है. Then I'll write that in the report, and that report will be used by the users of the financial statement. ठीक है. Now, students, there is an important concept that in audit, when the auditor is conducting the audit, when he is giving the opinion, then when the auditor has conducted the audit, he will be obtaining an assurance. Assurance होगा तभी तो वो confidence to the users of financial statement को दिया जाएगा. That assurance will be reasonable. So the auditor obtains reasonable assurance when he audits the financial statement of a client. अब बताओ reasonable क्या होता है? Quickly send in your replies. Reasonable क्या होता है? Acceptable. So reasonable is a high level of assurance. ठीक है? But it is not absolute assurance. Absolute assurance नहीं होता है. It is not a guarantee. कोई 100% गारंटी नहीं दे दी है that financial statement 100% correct है. देखो, in chapter number 11 now, we will be discussing about audit report, and there you will see that when the auditor is giving his report to the users of the financial statement, he will be mentioning the term that the financial statement reflect a true and fair view. यहाँ पर correct नहीं आएगा, true and fair view आएगा. Correct word is not used. The auditor obtains a reasonable assurance, and auditor gives a reasonable assurance only. What is meant by reasonable? It is a high level of assurance, though not 100% guarantee. कोई 100% guarantee थोड़ी ना हो जाएगा कि financial statement में कोई भी misstatement नहीं है. Because अभी तो we have understood that we as an auditors, we are concerned with materiality, है ना? And students, further in today's session or in the next session, we will be discussing a topic which is inherent limitations of audit, that there are certain limitations with the process of audit because of which auditor can only obtain a reasonable assurance. तो जो मुझे reasonable assurance मिला है तो मैं users को भी तो reasonable assurance ही दूंगी ना. So reasonable assurance auditor will obtain when he conducts the audit of the financial statement, है ना? And why? The answer is in the topic inherent limitations of audit. कि audit अगर हम कर रहे हैं तो उसके उस process के भी कुछ limitations है ना, तो उस वजह से 100% guarantee auditor को भी नहीं मिलती है और auditor वो users of financial statement को नहीं दे सकता. ठीक है? So is it clear? Is it clear? Reasonable assurance. And standards on auditing क्या है? देखो, we will be studying this topic in detail in the next session. अभी के लिए क्या समझना है हमें? जैसे there are accounting standards now which the management has to follow when they are preparing and presenting the financial information, the financial statements. Same way, when the auditor is conducting the audit, so there are certain standards on auditing, है ना, which prescribes as to how the audit is to be conducted. So these standards bring about a uniformity in the process which has been followed by the auditors when they are conducting the audit. So standards on auditing hai, and there are a number of standards in your syllabus. Let me just tell you. Many of you are saying again and again, मैम ये सब कहाँ लिखा है? तो मैं आपको दिखा देती हूँ कि standards on auditing कहाँ लिखा है. देखो, standard setting process है ना. This we will be doing in the next session. So, see, standards on auditing, है ना? So, like introductory matters are contained in essay 100 to 199. General principles and responsibilities are contained in essay 200 to 299. Risk assessment and response to assess risk, these are contained in essay 300 to 499. Audit evidence, essay 500 to 599. Using work of other auditors, 600 to 699. Audit conclusion and reporting, 700 to 799. Specialized areas, So I am sure that many of you must have started calculating na कि कितने S's हैं. So all these are not the S's, and in fact in सब numbers में there are not like all these numbers are not filled with the S's, है ना? कुछ numbers are left blank so that if later on any addition is to be done, so that can be done. So all these S's are not in your syllabus. What all S's are in your syllabus, this you will see as and when the we will proceed with the chapters. ठीक है? So these are what standards on auditing. अब who issues them कहाँ लिखा है कि ये सब follow करना है, ये हम next session में पढ़ेंगे, ठीक है? But standards क्या होते हैं, मैंने अभी आपको बता दिया कि जैसे मैनेजमेंट को फॉलो करना है अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स, ऑडिट अब ऑडिटर is conducting the audit. So there should be a uniformity in the way na how all the auditors across India are conducting the audit. So they will be following what these standards. The standards tell as to how, let's say, this 500 series audit evidence. So it contains a number of standards. For example, SA 501. Hana? So you will see that specifically certain items are discussed, like inventory, that with respect to inventory, how to obtain audit evidence. Hana? So all the auditors across India, they are going to follow those procedures. Hana? So we will be studying all these standards as and when they'll come. And in this chapter, we will be studying SA 200 as the first standard. Okay? So clear hai? Okay? So I hope it is clear now. So I think let me just check. I have covered all the terms that I wanted to discuss with you before discussing the definition. But I will first revise it quickly within the next 2 minutes, and then I'll proceed with the definition of term audit. है ना? ठीक है. So हमने क्या पढ़ा? Management is responsible for preparation and presentation of financial statements as per the applicable FRF. ठीक है? Management is responsible for the implementation, maintenance, design, implementation, maintenance of internal control. The financial reporting framework, which has been adopted by the management in preparation, presentation of financial statements, and which is acceptable, is what applicable financial reporting framework. Misstatement is the difference between the reported amount classification, presentation, and disclosure. So comparison of reported and what is required by the applicable FRF. It can be due to fraud or error. And we, as an auditor, we are concerned with material misstatement. और ऐसा कहाँ लिखा है? SA 320 में, जो आप कहाँ पढ़ोगे? Chapter number 2 में detail में. Since there are certain inherent limitations of audit, which we will be discussing in the next session, auditor obtains a reasonable assurance, है ना? Absolute assurance नहीं मिलता है. तो अगर मेरे पास guarantee है ही नहीं, I am not 100% like if I am obtaining reasonable assurance, I will be giving a reasonable assurance to the users of the financial statement. And when an auditor is conducting an audit, he needs to follow what standards on auditing. Okay? So students have, I think students now know that I'll be asking you the question that whether it is clear or not, because Divyansh, Anish have already answered that, ma'am, it is clear. Okay? Okay. Now let us discuss the very first definition, which is what is audit. And students, this definition is very, very important, Hana? Because when we will be doing this definition, you will see that a number of concepts are going to be clear to you, Hana? And a number of concepts are hidden in this definition. Jैसे you will see that independence, but there is a separate topic. So audit is an independent examination. Hana? So you will see that as and when we will discuss all 4 parts of this definition, you will see that a number of concepts will become clear. So audit is, let me just first read this definition, then we will discuss each and every part one by one. Is an independent examination of financial information of any entity, whether profit oriented or not, and irrespective of its size and legal form, when such an examination is conducted with a view to expressing an opinion thereon. Okay? A bit lengthy definition, but very easy definition. And I'm sure that you will be able to learn this definition also. But yes, for that you need to understand all the parts of this definition. So students, many of you are saying, ma'am, how to learn? So dekho students, I feel it comfortable whenever I look at a definition. So the first thing that I do is I divide it into parts. And then I try to understand each and every part, and then learning becomes easy. Now it is up to you whether you find this technique easy or complicated. Hana? So let us see and let us discuss. This definition is given in your module. देखो कहाँ पर है. So, अब देखो, अब start हुआ है chapter, है ना? अभी तक तो एक basic understanding थी. So, audit is an independent examination of financial information of any entity, whether profit-oriented or not, and irrespective of its size and legal form, when such an examination is conducted with a view to expressing an opinion thereon. Okay? And we will be spending at least half an hour understanding this definition, and I hope and I want all of you to reply that whether after half an hour, once we have done the discussion of this definition, whether you are able to understand and learn it or not. So it is an independent examination, Hana. So the term independent and examination, we will try to understand this. So tell me, what do you understand by the term independent? So अगर हिंदी में देखें तो स्वतंत्र, है ना? So audit is an independent examination. Examination क्या होता है? Checking. ठीक है? Now tell me, A Limited का example लेते हैं, ठीक है? A Limited, the management of A Limited wants to get the financial statements of A Limited checked, audited, है ना? Now, one of the employees of A Limited, let's say CA Brijesh, he is an employee of A Limited. So he is a chartered accountant. ठीक है? The management approaches CA Brijesh and asks him that CA Brijesh, since the bank manager has asked for an audited financial statement, you do one thing. Since you are a chartered accountant, you check the financial statements of your company, like you are an employee here, and you give your audit report. Okay? Now CA Brijesh starts checking the financial statement and he finds that there is a misstatement, there is a fraud in the company. Now tell me, when in this situation, now CA Brijesh is aware that when a report is to be given, then any material misstatement is to be mentioned in the report, because auditor are concerned with that. So CA Brijesh approaches the management and tells the management that management, देखो इसमें ना there is a mistake, there is a misstatement due to fraud, and I'll be reporting it, है ना? और अब वो वाला report जाके बैंक को देना. Now tell me, is CA Brijesh, who is an employee of A Limited, is he in a position to give an independent opinion on the financial statements of A Limited? Quickly tell me. Quickly tell me, I'm waiting for your replies. Obviously, no. Why? Because he has an interest in the company ना. Interest कैसा है? इसको salary मिलनी है ना, इसको bonus मिलना है ना, तो ये interest हो गया ना in A Limited. So he is not independent. he will be influenced by the management of A Limited. Management will ask CA Brijesh ki, acha, you need to give a report. You want to mention about the fraud. Do you want your salary or not? Do you want the bonus or not? So there is an interest of CA Brijesh in the company. Same way, let's say, uh, let's say a partnership firm is there, है ना, उसको audit होना है, and one of the partner is Mr. A. His son, let's say CA Avinash, he recently becomes chartered accountant. Now Mr. A approaches his son that, see, now since you have become a chartered accountant, you conduct the audit of my partnership firm and you give a report. Now, while conducting the audit, CA Avinash comes across a fraud. Now, tell me, will Mr. A allow his son to report that fraud in his report? Obviously not. Why? Because now there is what? He's a relative. So obviously, CA Avinash will always be influenced by his father. His opinion cannot be considered as independent. So independence is very much required. That is why the first word of the definition is what? It is an independent examination. Examination to करवाना है, ठीक है? And many of you are saying, I can see at the queries that मैम चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट ही करता है क्या ऑडिट? हाँ, तो जो स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट होता है ना, you will be studying this in chapter number 10, that a chartered accountant, he is eligible to be appointed as a statutory auditor of a company. तो ऑडिटर से तो करवाना, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट से तो करवाना ही है. इधर भी तो सीए ब्रिजेश है ना, सीए है ना, यहाँ पर भी तो सीए है ना. बट द टर्म इंडिपेंडेंट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. The opinion of the auditor should not be influenced by the wishes of management of A Limited, है ना. ऐसे थोड़ी ना होना चाहिए कि मैनेजमेंट ने बोला ऐसा लिख दो तो उसने लिख दिया, नहीं. So there should be what? Independence, है ना. And independence can be should be of two types. वो क्या होता है हम next to next session में करेंगे, ठीक है. So independent, and what is meant by examination? Checking, testing, है ना. तो the first part, an independent examination, I hope it is clear. So audit is an independent examination of financial information. I told you that whatever information is there, if you put that in a structured format, it becomes what? Financial statements. So I can say that whatever information is coming in balance sheet, whatever information is coming in P&L, whatever information is coming in cash flow, whatever information is coming in notes to accounts, all that is what? Financial information. ऐसा थोड़ी ना है कि ऑडिटर सिर्फ बैलेंस शीट और P&L को चेक करेगा, नहीं. He will be checking the financial statements as a whole, and financial information will include notes to accounts, है ना. notes to accounts में contingent liability के लिए लिखते हैं ना, तो वो लिखा है या नहीं मैनेजमेंट ने? कोई मटीरियल स्टेटमेंट नोट्स टू अकाउंट्स में, बैलेंस शीट में, P&L में, कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट ऑफ इक्विटी कहीं है तो नहीं. सो इंडिपेंडेंट एग्जामिनेशन ऑफ फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन, ठीक है. आई होप दीज टू थिंग्स आर क्लियर. स्टूडेंट्स, विद रिस्पेक्ट टू इंडिपेंडेंस ना, in chapter number 10, I can see a number of doubts are there. We will be studying about qualification, disqualification, eligibility of an auditor, है ना. तो वहां डिटेल में डिस्कस करेंगे कि क्या रिलेशन हो सकता है, क्या क्वालिफिकेशन चाहिए, है ना. अभी के लिए जो आई हैव गिवन यू एग्जांपल, इंडिपेंडेंस क्या होता है? स्वतंत्र होना चाहिए, कि द ओपिनियन ऑफ द ऑडिटर शुड नॉट बी इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय द विशेस ऑफ मैनेजमेंट ऑफ ए लिमिटेड इन आवर एग्जांपल, ठीक है. अभी के लिए ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट, ठीक है. सो an independent examination of financial information, ठीक है. Then it says of any entity, whether profit oriented or not, and irrespective of its size and legal form. This word any here is very important, है ना. Any entity, कोई भी entity हो, बेशक उसका profit है या नहीं. तो tell me, Section 8 companies, Section 8 of companies of the Section 8 of the Companies Act 2013. Tell me whether they can get their accounts audited or not. Whether the NGOs can get their account audited or not. The answer is yes. Why? Because it says any entity, whether profit oriented or not, irrespective of its size or legal form. कहीं ये थोड़ी ना mention है that only big organizations can get their accounts audited or they are required to get their accounts audited. In fact, small organizations, small firms can also get their account audited, है ना? Or any legal form, be it a company, be it a partnership firm, be it a proprietorship, AOP, BOI, any person, any entity can get their account audited. ठीक है? हाँ, अभी we will be discussing a topic with respect to types of audit, that is compulsory audit क्या होता है, voluntary audit क्या होता है, वहां पर we will be discussing this thing in detail, है ना? So an independent examination of financial information of any entity, whether profit oriented or not, and irrespective of its size or legal form, be it a big company or a small company or a small, let's say a Kiryana store, है ना? Or any legal form, any, be it in form of a company or a partnership firm, audit includes all these. ठीक है? So I hope the third part is also clear. Okay. Now, the last part says when such an examination, such implies what? This independent examination. When such an examination is conducted with a view to expressing an opinion thereon. Thereon का क्या मतलब है? On the financial information, जिसकी अभी हमने ऊपर बात की ना, independent examination. So that is why such examination is conducted with a view to expressing an opinion thereon. Thereon implies what? On the financial information which we have just discussed. ठीक है? तो just try to understand that the auditor is conducting the audit. तो वो क्यों कर रहा है? ऐसा थोड़ी ना है कि बस auditor wants to know whether this company is working properly or not, whether the financial statements are prepared as per applicable FRF. नहीं. See, why the audit has been conducted, why management of A Limited will appoint an auditor, because they need one end result, which is the opinion, which will be in the form of audit report. This is what audit report. है ना? यही तो end result है ना, इसी के लिए तो management of A Limited will be providing all information to the auditor. इसी के लिए तो this auditor will be working and performing all his audit procedure. So with the view to expressing an opinion, the Hindi word of opinion is what? Rai. है ना? Auditor, then after checking the financial statements, then only auditor will be in a position to give his opinion, to give his view about the financial statements. Hana? So let us read this again. And I'll be discussing this opinion in detail, Hana? Aage, when we'll be discussing the objectives. So audit is an independent examination of financial information of any entity, whether profit oriented or not, and irrespective of its size and legal form, when such an examination, such means this independent examination, is conducted with a view to expressing an opinion thereon. Thereon is on the financial information. And what is the ultimate purpose, the ultimate objective of conducting the audit? Ultimately तो management को एक opinion ही चाहिए ना. Ultimately तो auditor एक opinion ही देगा ना, that I have checked the financial statement and the financial statement reflects a true and fair view, or they do not reflect, whatever kind of opinion will come. And here also I like to tell you that this audit report topic, this opinion topic, we will discuss in detail in chapter number 11. ठीक है? अब स्टूडेंट्स आर सेइंग मैम ऑनलाइन बिजनेस की ऑडिट कैसे होगी? So students, as in when the we will proceed, the chapters will get unfolded. You will be able to answer to these questions by yourself, है ना? अभी तो हमने just definition start किया है ना कि audit है क्या, ठीक है? So students, now they know that I'll be asking whether it is clear or not, and I can see Rohit, Ashwin, Jayendra have said that ma'am it is clear. सो ऑडिट इज एन इंडिपेंडेंट एग्जामिनेशन. देखो अब ये जो आप पूछते हो ना कि मैम लर्निंग कैसे होगी, एग्जाम में लिखना कैसे है, तो नाउ यू नो दैट इट इज डिवाइडेड इनटू 4 पार्ट्स. तो पहले देखो ना कितना लॉजिकल है. इंडिपेंडेंट एग्जामिनेशन है किसका? फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन किसका? एनी एंटिटी, वेदर प्रॉफिट ओरिएंटेड और नॉट, इरिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ इट्स साइज एंड लीगल फॉर्म. क्यों? when such an examination is conducted with a view to expressing an opinion thereon, है ना? Is it clear? Is it clear? So students, many of you are asking that whether these notes will be uploaded on the portal. So the answer is no. Why? Because while I'm explaining you, I write a number of short forms. I just leave number of things in between. If I upload this document, this Word document, it might create confusion in your mind, है ना? And as such, I'm not writing anything which is not mentioned in your module, है ना? So जहां पर आपको लगता है you need to take some points, you can always write with pen or pencil in your study. And as such, there is अभी तक I haven't written anything which you need to write, है ना? ये definition it is given. हाँ, very very important लिखना है तो this you can write, ठीक है? So audit is an independent examination of financial information of any entity, whether profit oriented or not, and irrespective of its size or legal form, when such an examination, मतलब जो independent examination की हमने ऊपर बात किया है, is conducted with a view to expressing an opinion thereon मतलब on the financial statement, ठीक है? So now, how to ask doubt? Ayushi, you can send in your doubts here only, na? I'm able to read all your queries. I'll definitely reply to all your doubts. I'll definitely reply. Okay? So you can send in your doubts, and since a number of your replies or queries are coming, so it might be possible, students, that many of your queries are left, Hana. So in that case, send your queries again and again, and after the class, you can just send in your replies, the queries. In the next session, for this chapter, I'll take up any of the queries if they are left unanswered. Yes, Jayendra, you are correct. ठीक है? And Farah is saying, ma'am, याद हो गया. So now my next question to you is whether you have been able to learn at least कुछ भी इस डेफिनेशन में थोड़ा सा तो कुछ तो लर्निंग पार्ट भी क्लियर हुआ होगा ना. तो सपना इज सेइंग मैम क्लियर एंड लर्न. ठीक है? सो this is about what definition of audit. ठीक है? So students, I'll do one thing. Here we will take a quick break of 10 minutes. ठीक है? उसके बाद I'll be taking up the next topics. In the break, you just forward me all your queries, है ना? If any of your queries is left unanswered, and after the break, I'll take up all those queries. ठीक है? So let us take a break of 10 minutes here. Students, I hope you all are back after the break. So we have discussed the definition of audit, and I can see that many of you have mentioned, ma'am, it is clear. So with respect to the other chapters, the schedule for the other sessions will be uploaded on the portal. Hana? Srija, I cannot see any of your queries, so you can send in your query again. So, Sapna, with respect to your query regarding whether audit is required everywhere, every year, whether it is mandatory for all, this will come as and when we'll proceed further in this chapter and other chapters, Hana. Yes, sir, shall definitely try to include the session summary at the beginning of the next session, Hana. Okay, I'll try that. So yes, who has mentioned it? Audit is not a guarantee. So Akriti, you are right that audit is not a guarantee. So Jayendra is saying, ma'am, definition is learned. Rohit is saying, I'm afraid of this subject and I can't study, remember. So please tell the proper approach. So who's message? Rohit, I'll be sharing with you the technique as to how to learn. Hana? So basically try to try to learn the keywords. You will find that there are keywords in every paragraph, in every topic. And then use your connecting language. Hana? And when you will go through the module once, twice or thrice, after reading the entire module, the entire chapter, you will see that the language is coming automatically. है ना? आप every उसको read करोगे 2 times or 3 times. Just learn the keywords and then use your own language. ठीक है? So learning is going to be very easy, but हाँ उसके लिए understanding चाहिए and उसके लिए you need to read the module at least twice or thrice. After the session, I'll suggest you that go through the topic that we cover in the session. I'm sure that learning is going to be a cakewalk for all of you. So, Harini Nara, your query will be answered when we will do the topic inherent limitations of audit. Okay. So now I'll be starting with the next topic, and students, now I'll be taking you through the module and you will see that since we have discussed a number of terms earlier before this break with respect to reasonable assurance, misstatement, material misstatement, everything we have discussed. Now these topics are going to be clear to you with ease, Hana, and we'll quickly cover all these topics. Why? Because we have understood the foundation of these topics. Aisha, I cannot see your query. I don't know why. Yes, Fatima, Aisha, you can always refer to these sessions. And if you, let's say you are appearing for November 23, as I have understood from your query, then in case of any amendment that can be seen. Otherwise, you can always refer to these sessions. Praveen, Pranav, send in your query again. Okay? Now, see, when A Limited has appointed the auditor, the purpose, I told you what is the purpose, कि एक opinion देना है. है ना? And auditor will be checking the financial statement. He'll be examining the financial statement. ठीक है? Now tell me, what is the purpose? So basically the auditor wants that the financial statement should not mislead anybody. If the branch manager in our earlier example, he has to give a loan, है ना? So the financial statement should be true and fair. It should not happen that it is misleading the branch manager. है ना? The information that is getting reflected in the financial statements which are being presented to the branch manager, if the audited financial statements are given, then it should not mislead the branch manager. So our next topic is that auditor should take care to ensure that financial statement should not mislead anybody. Now, what is anybody here? So anybody here means the users of the financial statement. So if let's say I am the branch manager, I have to give the loan to the company A Limited. I am asking for audited financial statement. Then that audited financial statement should not mislead me. I will become that anybody, that is the user of the financial statement. So if those audited financial statements are being referred by any of the users, then such financial statement should not mislead the users of the financial statement. Okay? Now, students, management has prepared the financial statement. Auditor is examining those financial statements and giving his opinion, right? Now, what steps auditor should undertake in order to be sure that financial statements are not misleading the users of such audited financial statement? Very simple and very basic. बहुत basic है. देखो, financial statements जब accounts draw हुए, so those are drawn based on certain entries in the books of accounts. So the first and foremost step is that auditor should satisfy himself that the accounts have been drawn with reference to the entries in the books of accounts. Very logical, है ना? जो भी accounting का पूरा process है, so auditor will step by step check all that. Then only auditor will be able to be satisfied that financial statements, which is the end product of the accounting process, that is not misleading any user of the financial statement. So in order to be sure that financial statements are not misleading anybody, auditor will satisfy himself. He will obtain a reasonable assurance that accounts have been drawn based on the entries in the books of accounts. Simple. Now, those general entries, they must be having some supporting documents. So the next step is auditor will check that all the entries are supported by evidence. For example, कोई traveling expense voucher है, so auditor will check that voucher, that supporting document. Simple है ना? Ultimately, what is the purpose? That the end product, that is the financial statements, should not mislead anybody. So auditor will check all the steps which has given result to this end product. That is the financial statements here. So सबसे पहले auditor will satisfy himself that the accounts have been drawn with reference to books of accounts. Very logical, very simple. Then further, these entries should be supported by audit, by sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Auditor will check that, right? Then auditor will satisfy himself that none of the entries is omitted. It should not happen that there is a voucher with respect to, let's say, a traveling expense, but the same has not been reflected in the financial statements. So none of the entries should have been omitted. Logical, na? And very simple. The auditor should satisfy himself that the information, the whatever financial information is there, that is clear and unambiguous. Unambiguous is again what? Clear. Okay. Then auditor will make sure that he will satisfy himself that the financial statement amounts are properly classified, described and disclosed as per the accounting standards, the applicable financial reporting framework. Very logical. And last, the auditor will satisfy himself that the statement of accounts reflect a true and fair picture of operational results and assets liability. That is what P&L and balance sheet. Logical, na? So auditor is ensuring that that is the P&L and balance sheet, should not mislead anyone. Anybody here is what? User. So he started from the very beginning कि general entries को देखा, उनका supporting documents देखा that any of the entries should not be omitted. Every information should be clear and unambiguous. Financial statement amounts, whatever amounts are getting reflected, are properly classified, described, and disclosed as per the accounting standards or the applicable FRF. And the statement of accounts reflect a true and fair picture of the operational results and assets and liabilities. So this is a very small topic which is very, very important. I hope it is clear. Logical hai. No cramming is required, only understanding is required. And yes, as I always say, see, many of you were saying ki ma'am kaise learn karna hai. So see, these are the keywords na, that account should have been drawn as per the entries in the books of accounts. The entry should have been supported by sufficient appropriate audit evidence. None of the entries should have been omitted. The information, auditor will satisfy himself that the information is clear and unambiguous. So this is the way you need to learn. So analysis or definition, this is your homework. Just go through it as a homework. The person conducting this task, that is the auditor, should take care to ensure that financial statements should not mislead anybody. This he can do honestly by satisfying himself that accounts have been drawn with reference to entries, and entries should be what? Supported by sufficient appropriate audit evidence. तो ये भी entry से related है. None of the entries should have been omitted. In legal form will include like whether it is in the form of a company or if it is in the form of partnership firm, AOP, BOI, any form. Okay? So this is again, this example is your homework. Okay? Is it clear now? Now, the next topic, which is again very, very important, is what? Objectives of audit. And students, as I have told you that we will be referring to SAYS, Standards on Auditing. So this is the first essay of this subject, Standards on Auditing, essay 200. So the objectives of audit are contained in essay 200. So what is the name? See, students, a lot of information is hidden in the name of an essay. If you understand the name of the essay, you are able to understand as to what this essay, what responsibility this essay has given on the auditor. Essay ka purpose kya hai? I have told you, standards on auditing ka, they basically tell as to how the audit is to be performed in particular circumstance. कि अगर inventory का audit करना है तो कैसे करना है, going concern को consider करना है तो कैसे करना है, right? So essay 200, and what is the name? Overall objectives of the independent auditor. Now तो you all know that statutory auditor, external auditor है, ये independent auditor है, and the conduct of an audit in accordance with these standards on auditing. So here, the name of essay 200, if I divide it into two parts, let me just divide it into two parts. So overall objective of the independent auditor and the conduct of an audit in accordance with standards on auditing. So the first part itself make it clear that essay 200 mein what is contained? The overall objective of the independent auditor. And the second part makes it clear that the auditor needs to conduct the audit in accordance with the standards on auditing. So abhi we are discussing the topic objectives of audit. Okay? And now students, जो whatever we have understood ना कि reasonable क्या होता है, assurance क्या होता है, material misstatement क्या होता है, financial reporting framework क्या होता है, ठीक है, and ultimate objective क्या होता है, to give the report. So that is only contained in this objective of audit. Clear? So what is the name? Overall objective of the independent auditor and the conduct of an audit in accordance with standards on auditing. So see, why objective is what is the purpose? Why the audit has been conducted? Okay? So one of the objective is that the auditor will obtain a reasonable assurance that financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement respects in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework. And having done that, auditor will give his report. Clear? अभी तक यही तो पढ़ा है ना, बट अब इसको इन द फॉर्म ऑफ ऑब्जेक्टिव्स देखते हैं. सो सी ये सब एक्टिविटी जो ऑडिटर ऑडिट करेगा, चेक कर रहा है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स, है ना, वो क्यों कर रहा है? बिकॉज ऑडिटर हैज टू जस्ट obtain a reasonable assurance. अब आपको पता है कि reasonable क्यों होता है? बिकॉज कुछ inherent limitations होती हैं ऑडिट में. So 100% assurance, absolute assurance नहीं मिलता है. Reasonable assurance, क्या reasonable assurance? That financial statement as a whole are, this is what, free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Hana? So many of you were saying, so students, if there is a problem in the video, na, you please just refresh the page. Hana? So IT, please look into this matter. Many of the students are saying there is some network issue. Okay. So SA 200 is what? Overall objectives of the independent auditor and the conduct of an audit in accordance with standards on auditing. Okay. So what is the objective? So whatever we have done so far, now you will see that now we will be putting all that together. So the objective of the auditor is to obtain a reasonable assurance, and now you all know what is meant by assurance. Satisfaction or confidence. Reasonable, which is a high level of assurance but not absolute assurance, right? What assurance? That financial statement as a whole are free from, now you all know that materiality is what an auditor is concerned with, and SA 320 you will be doing in detail in chapter number 2. Material misstatement and misstatement, whether it is due to fraud or it is due to error. Further, enabling the auditor to express an opinion, ये भी पढ़ा है ना, जो definition of audit में था, with a view to expressing an opinion. What opinion? Whether financial statements are prepared in all material respects, because you know that SA 320 is there, in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework. And now you all know what is meant by applicable financial reporting framework, है ना? अब तो सबको पता ही है ना क्या है ये. And having obtained the reasonable assurance, auditor will report on the financial statements and communicate as required by standards on auditing in accordance with auditor's finding. And students, there are essays of 700 series, 700, 701, 705, 706, which is in detail in chapter number 11, which is about how to report, which the name of the chapter is what? Audit report. है ना? वहां पर डिटेल में डिस्कस करेंगे that what opinion, how that opinion is to be given. है ना? तो देखो, this entire topic of objective is basically what we have done so far. Auditor का क्या objective है? Auditor ने क्यों audit किया? Because he wanted to obtain a reasonable assurance that financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. उससे क्या होगा? It will enable the auditor to express an opinion. What opinion? As to whether the financial statements are prepared in all material respects in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework, and having obtained a reasonable assurance, क्या करना? Auditor अपने पास report रख लेगा? नहीं. Auditor will report on the financial statements and communicate as required by standards on auditing in accordance with auditor's finding. Clear? So the overall objective क्या है? पहले क्या? Auditor will what? He will obtain a reasonable assurance. ठीक है? क्या reasonable assurance? To ensure that financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatements. ठीक है? Then to communicate as required. और communicate कैसे करना है? सारे users को जहाँ जाके बताना थोड़ी ना है. Auditor will issue a report to report on the financial statements. Yes, standards on audited. Tasu, you are correct. Okay. So students, tell me, are the objectives clear? See, students, you can always get a direct 3-marker question here. कि what are the objectives of the auditor in terms of SA 200? तो वहां पे how will you write SA 200, and you will write the name, overall objective of the independent auditor and the conduct of audit in accordance with standards on auditing. The objective is these 2 points. Where is it given in your module? I'll just show you. देखो. As per SA 200, overall objective of independent auditor, see right here, and the conduct of an audit. Just a minute. So I'm unable to write here. So यहाँ पे I mentioned their name and the conduct of the audit in accordance with standards on auditing, and otherwise, see here it is given, the full name of the standard is given here. Just a minute. Here. SA 200, overall objectives of the independent auditor and the conduct of an audit in accordance with standards on auditing. ठीक है? ठीक है? So don't get confused, है ना? Since this topic is about overall objectives, that is why this is mentioned here. To obtain reasonable assurance, kya? That financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud and error, thereby enabling the auditor to express an opinion on whether the financial statement are prepared in all material, देखो material misstatement से ही तो concern है ना, material respects in accordance with the applicable FRF, and और थोड़ी ना and है ना, having obtained this reasonable assurance to report on the financial statement and communicate as required by SA in accordance with the auditor's finding. And this example is your homework, है ना? So many of you were asking me, ma'am, whether we will get case studies or anything like that, also practical based question. Yes. How to practice for them? You will be able to practice and answer those questions correctly in your exam if you go through all the examples which are given in your module. And so this is your homework. Koi doubt hoga, definitely we will take that up in the next session. Is it clear? So the next topic is what? Scope of audit. Now my question to all of you is, tell me what is meant by scope, the term scope. Quickly send in your replies. The term scope. So scope is basically extent, reach, or coverage. है ना? So the next topic is scope of audit. कि कितना, what all areas are to be covered when the auditor is conducting an audit. है ना? What is the coverage? ठीक है? So what all is to be covered? Yes, area. Ayushi, you are correct. Chandan is saying boundary. Vishakha is saying extent. Akanksha is also saying extent. Where audit will apply? Jyoti is saying scope is coverage. Yes. ठीक है? This is absolutely correct. है ना? So नहीं, Miss Jyoti, whatever you have mentioned is not correct. मतलब that is not relating to scope. Scope basically means when, let's say, a CA firm has been appointed as auditor of A Limited, है ना? So what is the area of coverage of the audit, है ना? क्या क्या काम audit में cover होएगा, ठीक है? So बहुत logical है, बहुत simple है, and now since you have understood the meaning of the term internal control, you have understood as to whether the who is responsible for preparation, presentation of financial information and design, implementation, maintenance of internal control. It is the management, है ना? So this topic is going to be very clear to you. ठीक है, तो देखो, first of all, see, the audit should be organized to cover. Now these are the keywords: adequately, all aspects of the enterprise, and a very important keyword, relevant to the financial statements being audited, है ना? तो ऑडिटर को जब ऑडिट करना है तो उसको कौन कौन सा एरिया चेक करना है? ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में तो बहुत ज्यादा एरियाज होते हैं ना, फाइनेंशियल्स भी होते हैं, एचआर भी होता है, मार्केटिंग भी होता है, एंड वेरियर अदर मैटर्स आर देयर, सिक्योरिटी भी होता है, सब कुछ होता है ना. तो what all areas are to be covered? The audit should be organized to cover adequately. See, this adequately term, it implies that, see, 100% is not possible, है ना? ये तो अभी हमने पढ़ा ना कि reasonable assurance मिलता है, absolute तो नहीं मिलता है ना. So adequately, all aspects of the enterprise, all aspects, marketing भी देखना है, HR भी देखना है, wait, relevant to the financial statements being audited. The aspects that are going to have an impact on the financial statements, the auditor needs to cover all those aspects adequately, है ना? So the audit should be organized to cover adequately, है ना, all aspects of the enterprise. Those are relevant to the financial statements being audited. Clear? ठीक है? So this is the first point. ठीक है? Now students, just a minute. So scope of audit is what? Cover adequately all aspects of the enterprise relevant to financial statement. This is clear, I hope. So students, for all those who are sending me the query again and again with respect to network issues, please refresh your pages, and I have requested the IT personnel to fix this problem if there is any network issue. ठीक है? I'll repeat this. So scope of audit, that is what is to be covered, what is the extent of audit, है ना? What areas are to be covered. So it basically says that audit should be organized to cover adequately all aspects of the enterprise relevant to the financial statements, which have an impact on the financial statements. ठीक है? For the students, see, when the financial statements are made, balance sheet, P&L, these are prepared with the help of certain underlying records like general entries, ledgers, right? Or some source data. Example, your vouchers. As such, vouchers are not the part of the accounts now. So they are what? Source data, or let's say agreement copies. Let's say if any rent agreement is there. Okay? So that is what? Source data. And underlying records is what? Your general entries, your ledger based on what the financial statements are prepared. Okay? So when the auditor is deciding the scope of audit, then the auditor should decide it in such a way that he should be able to give a reasonable satisfaction to himself that the information that is contained in underlying records and source data is reliable and sufficient. So see, what we are discussing ki extent of checking kitna hai, kitna checking karna hai. So it says that auditor since the financial statements are prepared based on underlying records like general entries and ledgers and source data like vouchers, rent agreement, so the extent of your audit should be such that you should be able to get a reasonable satisfaction that whatever information is contained in the underlying records, in the source data, that is reliable and sufficient. है ना? Now, if auditor asks that कैसे पता लगाएंगे that the information is reliable and sufficient, so the auditor, in order to make sure that the information is reliable and sufficient, what he will do, he will study and evaluate the accounting system and the internal control, and he'll carry out various test inquiries or various verification procedures. ठीक है? Simple है. There are 7 points. I hope there are 7 points. Hana, I'll connect all these points so that the learning also becomes easy for you. Okay? So first of all, we have told the auditor that you need to cover adequately all aspects of the enterprise relevant to the financial statement. Further, since financial statements are prepared based on information contained in underlying records and source data, you should be reasonably satisfied that such information is reliable and sufficient. Now, how will auditor be sure that the information contained in underlying records and source data is reliable and sufficient? He can study and evaluate what the accounting system, कि कैसे accounting system है, कैसे accounting हो रही है, अगर कोई purchase हुआ है, so what are the steps, how that purchase has been recorded, and the internal control. Hana, we have understood now what is meant by internal control. Students, here I would like to tell you, see, when we have studied this topic to report, see, it is mentioned when we have studied the topic of objectives. Hana? Yahan par I'll just stop that topic and I'll take you back to the objectives. It is mentioned to report on the financial statement. Tell me, is it mentioned anywhere to report on the internal control? Batao. To report on the internal control, is it mentioned anywhere? Nahi. So the auditor will give his opinion on the financial statements. Okay? Now then, why to check the internal control? See, students, since management has implemented the internal control on the financial statements, so once the auditor obtains a confidence with respect to the internal control that yes, internal control are working effectively, he will be able to perform his audit procedures on the financial statement more effectively and efficiently. है ना? अगर आपको पता है कि financial statement पर ये control है and this control is very good, then obviously you will perform audit procedures on those financial statements, or let's say maybe on sample basis. You will accordingly decide your audit procedures. है ना? So, as such, the auditor is not going to give the opinion on the internal control. Internal control पे opinion थोड़ी ना देना हमें. We need to give our opinion on the financial statement. But since the internal controls are implemented on the preparation and presentation of the financial statements, so the auditor will check the internal controls in order to decide as to what audit procedures he will perform on the financial statements. अगर देखो internal control are good, तो auditor he may decide now that ठीक है, I'll check. Let's say internal control or purchases are very good. So auditor, what will he decide? He'll check the internal control. He sees that the internal control on purchases are very, very strong. Hana? Then he may decide to check the purchases on sample basis. Vis-a-vis, consider a situation whereby internal control on sales are not good. They are weak. So auditor will obviously not rely on those internal control and he'll check sales transactions in detail. So in order to decide as to what will be the extent of checking auditor will check the internal control, though he is not required to give an opinion on the internal control as such. ठीक है? So is this topic clear? Is this topic clear? So we were discussing this topic. So I told you that opinion is not to be given on the internal controls, but yes, auditor will study and evaluate the internal control. So how to be reasonably satisfied that the information which is contained in underlying records and source data is reliable and sufficient? By studying and evaluating the accounting system and internal control, and carrying out the test, inquiries, and verification procedure. What test, inquiries, verification procedures? In chapter number 3, we will be discussing all the audit procedures in detail. ठीक है? इतना clear है? Now, students, if you remember, when we discussed in the very beginning about financial information, I told you specifically that financial information includes, just a minute, where is it mentioned? Financial information includes notes to accounts also. Hana? I've told you this thing now. So, just a minute. So, auditor, in order to be the scope of audit also includes that auditor needs to ensure that whatever relevant information is given in the financial statements, that is properly disclosed. See, scope में specifically mention किया गया है कि जो भी information disclosure है ना, that should be proper. है ना, notes to accounts में proper disclosure होना चाहिए. अब now auditor ask how. So again, the next point is relating to this only. So when the auditor needs to ensure that the information is properly disclosed, he will compare the financial statement with the underlying records and source data. Now, what is underlying records? Ledgers, general entries, source data like your vouchers. And he'll see that everything is properly summarized. For example, let's say there are 1,000 vouchers of traveling bills. So properly summarized होना चाहिए ना. जो सोर्स डेटा में 1000 वाउचर्स हैं ट्रैवलिंग बिल्स के, वो लेजर्स में आएगा, लेजर्स से फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में आएगा. सो ऑडिटर विल कंपेयर दैट. क्लियर? देन स्टूडेंट्स, सी व्हेन द मैनेजमेंट इज प्रिपेयरिंग द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स, व्हेन द मैनेजमेंट इज गिविंग वेरियस डिस्क्लोजर, मैनेजमेंट अप्लाइज इट्स व्हाट? जजमेंट. मैनेजमेंट अप्लाइज वेरियस जजमेंट. फॉर एग्जांपल, whether to show a particular liability as a contingent liability or to make a provision, management judgment, right? What should be the percentage of the provision? Again, management. Provision for bad and doubtful debts. What percentage? Again, management judgment, right? Whatever accounting policies are being followed. So it says that in order to be sure that all the disclosures are properly done, first of all, compare the financial statement with the underlying records and source data and see whether all the information is properly summarized. And auditor needs to consider the management judgment and accounting policies also. Simple, simple. Okay? So what all is included? First of all, cover all aspects of the enterprise, but which are relevant to financial statement. Be reasonably satisfied that information contained in underlying records and source data is reliable and sufficient. And how to do that? It is given in point number 4, that is study and evaluate the accounting system internal control and carry out test, inquiries, and verification procedures. Okay? Then third point says that whether the relevant information is properly disclosed, uske liye kya karna hai? Compare the financial statement with the underlying accounting records and source data and whether these are properly summarized, and consider the management judgment and whether the accounting policies are consistently applied. Clear? Now, the next 2 points says that ये तो हमने क्या बताया कि auditor is required to just auditor is required to cover all the aspects, Hana. If you remember in the first point, it is mentioned that auditor is required to cover adequately all aspects of the enterprise relevant to the financial statement. Now it says that auditor is not expected to perform the duties which fall outside the scope of his competence. See, I told you, we are an expert in accounts and auditing. Okay? Are we an expert with respect to valuation of a property? No. So anything that fall outside the scope of the competence of the auditor is not expected to perform those duties. So you may ask, ma'am, how will that then auditor examine the books? Hana? Let's say if there is, suppose there is certain revaluation of any asset. Now, whether that is correct or not, how will auditor know? Auditor can always take the help of the expert. Hana? So the duties which are outside the scope of competence of the auditor is not expected to perform that duty. Clear? And last but not the least, very, very important point, if any constraints are there on the scope of audit. Scope of audit में हमने क्या पढ़ा कि all aspects related to financial statements check करना है. ठीक है? For example, all aspects relating to financial statements को check करना है ना. Inventory भी तो related to financial statements होता है ना. Now, constraint is what? Any limitation. Now, let's take a situation where management put a constraint on the scope of audit. मतलब, in our example, management asked the auditor कि auditor आप inventory मत check करो. There is a constraint. There is a limitation on the scope of audit. Then it says that auditor, listen, we have told you that the scope should cover adequately all aspects. आपको underlying records भी देखना है, source data भी देखना है, आपको ये भी देखना है कि properly disclosure है या नहीं. और उसके लिए आपको क्या करना है? स्टडी भी करना है, कंपेयर भी करना है, मैनेजमेंट जजमेंट और अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसीज भी करना है. ठीक है? However, which fall outside your scope of competence, वो नहीं करना है. Last, it says that if management puts a constraint on the scope of audit, I gave you example of what? Management asked the auditor that auditor, listen, आप सारा audit कर लो, but ना inventory मत check करना, है ना? Then auditor needs to consider that. He needs to mention that in his audit report. ऐसे थोड़ी ना होता है. Why? Just remember, we have done what? Independent examination है. That opinion of the auditor should not be influenced by the wishes of the management. Management ने बोला inventory मत check करो, auditor मान जाएगा क्या? नहीं. So auditor will mention that in his report. If there is a constraint, limitation on the scope of audit, I gave you example of what? Inventory. So auditor will mention that in his report. Now, how to mention that? That we will discuss in chapter number 11. Abhi ke liye I am not taking up that topic. ठीक है? So let me just take you through the module with respect to scope of audit. देखो बहुत simple है. Just 3 points हैं starting के. जैसे first point says that it should be organized to cover adequately all aspects of enterprise relevant to the financial statements being audited. Second में क्या बोला? That or to form an opinion on the financial statement, auditor should be reasonably satisfied that information contained in the underlying records and source data is reliable and sufficient as the basis of preparation of financial statement. Why? Because अगर underlying records ही ठीक नहीं होंगे, financial statement ठीक थोड़ी ना होंगे. ठीक है? अब ये कैसे करना है? This is given in point number 4. C. The auditor assesses the reliability and sufficiency of information contained in accounting records and source data. है ना? तो second वाले point में what auditor needs to perform, it is given in 4th point, by making a study evaluation of accounting system and internal control and carrying out such other test inquiries, verification procedures of accounting transactions and account balances as he considers appropriate in particular circumstances. Clear? Third point, in forming this opinion, the auditor should also decide whether the reliable information, what is mentioned here, just a minute. The relevant information is properly disclosed in the financial statements. ठीक है? और वो कैसे करना है? देखो, it is given in point number 5th. The auditor determines whether relevant information is properly disclosed in the financial statement by, first of all, comparing the financial statement with the underlying records and source data, whether these are what? Properly summarized, and then considering the judgment that the management has made in preparing the financial statement, and auditor will assess whether the selection and there is the selection and consistent application of accounting policy in the manner in which information has been classified is done or not. ठीक है? Then the auditor is not expected to perform duties which fall outside the scope of his competence. So basically 3 points are there with respect to scope. Just a minute, है ना? Second point को कैसे करना, it is given in fourth. Third point को कैसे करना, it is given in fifth, right? अब क्या नहीं करना, it is given in 6 point, that anything which falls outside the scope of what competence. For example, professional skill required by the auditor does not include that of a technical expert for determining the physical condition of certain assets. अगर ऐसा कुछ काम है, auditor can always use the work of an expert, and students, there is a separate standard on auditing with respect to that also. Further, if any constraint is what? Limitation on the scope of audit of financial statement that impair, what is meant by impair? Weakens the auditor's ability to express an unqualified opinion on such financial statement should be set out in his report, and a qualified and disclaimer opinion should be expressed. अब ये क्या था? See, first of all, तो what is disclaimer of opinion, what is qualified opinion, we will be doing this in chapter number 11. ठीक है? तो अभी के लिए in order to understand point number 7, देखो मैंने आपको क्या बताया, that auditor will give his opinion that the financial statement reflected true and fair view, है ना? अगर सब कुछ अच्छा है, auditor will give an opinion that financial statement reflected true and fair view. जब auditor ऐसी opinion देता है, उसको क्या बोलते हैं? Unqualified opinion. Unqualified opinion, which means that financial statement reflected true and fair view. ठीक है? But if auditor is not able to get the audit evidence, why? Because constrained है ना, इन्वेंट्री चेक ही नहीं कर पाया, ऑडिटर को पता ही नहीं है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट रिफ्लेक्ट ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू करता है नहीं, तो ऑडिटर इज नॉट इन अ पोजीशन टू गिव अनक्वालिफाइड ओपिनियन. अब ऑडिटर तो लिख नहीं सकता ना दैट ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू है, तो ऑडिटर क्या बोलेगा? ईदर ही विल गिव क्वालिफाइड ओपिनियन और डिस्क्लेमर ऑफ ओपिनियन. नाउ व्हाट इज क्वालिफाइड ओपिनियन, व्हाट इज डिस्क्लेमर ऑफ ओपिनियन, अभी के लिए आई एम नॉट टेकिंग अप दिस टॉपिक. We will be discussing this topic in chapter number 11. ठीक है? तो समझ आया स्कोप ऑफ ऑडिट में क्या है? बहुत सिंपल है. फॉर ऑल दोज हु आर सेइंग मैम हाउ टू लर्न, देखो बहुत सिंपल है. पहले में क्या है? adequately cover all aspects of enterprise relevant to the financial statements being audited. ठीक है? Since financial statement कहाँ से बनते हैं? अंडरलाइन रिकॉर्ड से बनते हैं ना, जो आपके लेजर्स, जनरल एंट्रीज हैं, या सोर्स डेटा लाइक वाउचर्स आर यूज्ड, अग्रीमेंट, है ना, उन सब के बेसिस पे ही तो बनते हैं ना. So auditor will reasonably satisfy himself that information contained in underlying records and source data is what? Reliable and sufficient. उसके लिए क्या करना है? उसको चेक कर लो ना. Making a study and evaluation of accounting system internal control and carrying out such tests, procedures, inquiries as are required, right? Then third point says that auditor needs to also see whether the information is what? Properly disclosed. तो देखो स्कोप डिफाइन हो गया ना, कि आपको सिर्फ बैलेंस शीट पीएल नहीं देखना है, आपको डिस्क्लोजर ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन भी देखना है. फिर ऑडिटर आस्क कि कैसे देखना है? सिंपल है, जो भी अंडरलाइंग रिकॉर्ड्स है आप देखो वो प्रॉपर्ली समराइज होके ही फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में बना है ना. फर्दर, सिंस जो डिस्क्लोजर रिक्वायरमेंट्स होते हैं वहां पे मैनेजमेंट जजमेंट इन्वॉल्व होता है. फर्दर, सिलेक्शन ऑफ appropriate and the consistency of accounting policies be auditor needs to check, है ना. Then it says what all is not covered which fall outside the scope of competence, and lastly it says that if there is a constraint which impair मतलब weakens the auditor's ability to express an unqualified opinion. Unqualified opinion क्या होता है? कि सब कुछ true and fair है, सब कुछ बहुत बढ़िया है, but since auditor is unable to give this opinion, तो auditor के पास क्या option है? He can give a qualified or disclaimer of opinion. And what is qualified and disclaimer of opinion, that अभी I am not taking in detail. हाँ, अनक्वालिफाइड ओपिनियन क्या होता है? व्हेन ऑडिटर सेज दैट फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट रिफ्लेक्टेड ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू, सब कुछ बहुत अच्छा है, बट जब ऑडिटर ये ऐसा वाला ओपिनियन नहीं दे सकता, ही विल गिव व्हाट? अ क्वालिफाइड और डिस्क्लेमर. एंड देयर इज वन मोर काइंड ऑफ ओपिनियन व्हिच इज एडवर्स ओपिनियन, व्हिच वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग इन चैप्टर नंबर 11. ठीक है? सो विद दिस वी हैव कवर्ड व्हाट? द टॉपिक स्कोप. क्विकली टेल मी वेदर इट इज क्लियर. अंडरलाइंग रिकॉर्ड्स. सो मरियम, सी, अंडरलाइंग रिकॉर्ड्स का क्या मतलब है? इट इज नॉट अंडरलाइन, इट इज अंडरलाइन. देखो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स कैसे बनते हैं, बैलेंस शीट, पीएनएल, जनरल एंट्रीज होती हैं, कुछ लेजर्स होते हैं, सोर्स डेटा, फॉर एग्जाम्पल वाउचर्स होते हैं. ठीक है, सो दीज आर व्हाट अंडरलाइंग records which are the basis of financial statements. ठीक है, so Mariam, is it clear? ठीक है, is it clear? Simple है ना. तो अभी तक we have done what, the definition of word audit, objectives, and you have seen SS 200. ठीक है, then we did what, the scope of audit, and the next topic is what, aspects. अभी टॉपिक कहां से आया देखो, अभी हमने क्या पढ़ा, scope should cover adequately all aspects. Now we are discussing what is included in all aspects. Trial balance also I usually. ठीक है, so I hope it is clear, students. So the next topic is aspects to be covered in audit, है ना. See students, whatever topics we are covering here, these are all interrelated, है ना, और बहुत simple है. Logically सोचोगे ना और समझोगे तो you will be able to learn also, है ना. Aspects, अब ऊपर बोल तो दिया, it should cover adequately all aspects. अब all aspects क्या होते हैं, अब वो हम डिस्कस करते हैं. ठीक है, जयेंद्र, this doubt, your doubt will be cleared in chapter number 11, है ना. ये वाला doubt I will not taking up here. ठीक है, so aspects to be covered in audit. ठीक है, now students, this topic is very very logical, very very basic and very simple. देखो अब क्या क्या aspects को auditor को cover करना है when he is conducting the audit. अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम को चेक करना है, क्विकली सेंड इन योर रिप्लाईज, यस और नो. अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम को चेक करना है, वेरी बेसिक, बट फॉर दैट आई वांट योर 100% रिप्लाईज. अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम को चेक करना है, तो आलोक का रिप्लाई आ गया है यस. आई वांट अदर्स आल्सो टू रिप्लाई. Quickly send in your replies. When an auditor is conducting the audit, tell me whether he'll check the accounting system, a summary of whatever we have done so far. So Alok, Manisha Ben, Chandan, Jyoti, Raj, Mohammed, Kashif, Chandra, Palka, Tasu, Mariam, Sapna, Rohit, Ayushi, Raj, Rohit, Jyoti. A number of you have answered correctly. Yes, Shetty. Yes, ठीक है. Now tell me, internal control को check करना है. Internal control को check करना है. I'm not saying opinion देना है. I'm saying internal control को check करें. So many of you have answered it correctly. ठीक है. Should auditor review the systems and procedures? जो भी internal control है वो adequate है या नहीं, बताओ, check करें वो. So the answer is again yes. ठीक है. Tell me, arithmetical accuracy को check करें कि depreciation ठीक से calculate हुआ है या नहीं, provision का calculation ठीक है या नहीं. Tell me, auditor है तो arithmetical accuracy check करना है, हाँ करना है. ठीक है. वैलिडिटी ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शंस को करें, ऑथराइजेशन कि अगर कोई इंटरनल कंट्रोल है दैट द बिल शुड बी साइंड बाय 2 ऑथराइज्ड सिग्नेटरीज, वेदर दैट हैज बीन डन और नॉट. चेक करें, हाँ करेंगे. व्हाई? बिकॉज इंटरनल कंट्रोल तो चेक कर ही रहे हैं, फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स तो चेक कर ही रहे हैं. ठीक है. Tell me, when the auditor is conducting an audit, whether he'll check whether any of the revenue item has been capitalized or vice versa. ऐसा तो नहीं है कि कोई रिपेयर एंड मेंटेनेंस है रेगुलर बेसिस का which has been capitalized or any capital nature का item है which has been charged and expense to P&L. So the answer is again yes. ठीक है. बैलेंस शीट एंड P&L को अंडरलाइन रिकॉर्ड से चेक करेंगे. So the answer is again yes. Assets को वेरीफाई करेंगे. So the answer is yes. लाइबिलिटीज को वेरीफाई करेंगे. सो द आंसर इज यस. P&L आइटम्स को वेरीफाई करेंगे. सो द आंसर इज अगेन यस. एनी रिक्वायरमेंट बाय द स्टैट्यूटरी let's say Companies Act, Schedule 3 of the Companies Act, whether that will be checked, obviously the answer is what? Yes. So aspect covered all these aspects only. है ना? So let us just go through the module. Very easy, very basic concept. ठीक है? So see, aspects to be covered. So examination of accounting system and internal control. Reviewing the systems and procedures. कि जो भी systems and procedures है, whether they are adequate. Management ने apply, implement तो कर दिए. Adequate है नहीं, उसको review करेंगे हम. Arithmetical accuracy करना है. Authenticity and validity of transaction, that is authorization. ठीक है? Then the distinction between capital and revenue nature items, comparing balance sheet P&L with underlying records, assets को verify करेंगे, title, existence, valuation, same है, liabilities को verify करेंगे, checking the results of P&L, that is P&L item को, any statutory requirements है वो करेंगे, and ultimately ये सब करने के बाद क्या करेंगे? Reporting करेंगे. Quickly tell me, is it tough or is it easy? Easy है ना? Aspects to be covered. So an examination of system of accounting and internal control. This example is again your homework. Reviewing the system and procedure, whether it is adequate or not. है ना? Checking the arithmetical accuracy, authenticity, validity of transaction, proper distinction between items of capital, revenue nature, comparison of balance sheet P&L with underlying record, verification of what? Assets. ठीक है? ये जो है ना, ये chapter number 9 में it is in quite detail, तो अभी I'm not taking up this topic. है ना? Verification of liabilities करोगे, checking the results shown by P&L करोगे. If any statutory requirements, I gave you example of what? Schedule 3 to the Companies Act, है ना? उसका कोई requirement है, disclosure requirement, तो yes. And reporting to the appropriate person body, whether the statement of accounts examined do reveal true and fair view of the state of affairs and the P&L of the organization. State of affairs is what? The balance sheet and the P&L. So you are saying, Deepika is saying, ma'am, it is moderate. Chalo, that's good. Okay. So I hope you all have been able to understand all these topics and you are able to visualize as to what this topic talks about, है ना? Aspects है तो उसमें क्या आएगा? Scope है तो क्या आएगा? Overall objectives है तो क्या आएगा? ठीक है? ठीक है? Now this definition of assertion I'll take in the next session. Abhi quickly, what we will do is types of audit. If you remember when I told you that when we were discussing the definition of term audit, we saw it is what? Independent examination of financial information of any entity, irrespective of its size and legal form. Remember, whether profit oriented or not, irrespective of its size and legal form. There I told you that we will be discussing a topic of what? Types of audit. See, many of you were asking, ma'am, is it mandatory to get the accounts audited? So students, see, we can divide the audit based on the obligation to get it conducted in two types, that is audit required under law and in voluntary category. Okay? So the organizations which require the audit under law are what? Companies governed by the Companies Act. And in fact, in chapter number 10, you will see that it is mentioned that every company will get the accounts audited. So companies are required to get the accounts audited. Same way banking companies or other statutory bodies required by regulators or specific Act. So let's say if SEBI requires a company to get the account audited, or otherwise also the companies are required to get their account audited, so it is required under law. Okay? Involuntary audit, the audit of accounts of proprietary entities, partnership firms, HUF, these may get their accounts audited on voluntary basis. Now, why? See, students, as a matter of internal rule, let's say there are 4 partners, उनको भी तो देखना है ना whether everything is been managed properly or not, the financial statements are correct or not, है ना? So as a matter of internal rule, ठीक है? Or maybe on the directives of a government, if government has given some grant, some donation, or let's say some license is required by an organization, so government may ask that entity to get the accounts audited, or because of the advantages of audited financial statement, the entities may get their accounts audited on a voluntary basis. ठीक है? तो या तो वो एक इंटरनल रूल बना लेते हैं या गवर्नमेंट डायरेक्टिव्स के अकॉर्डिंग, और बिकॉज ऑफ द वेरियस एडवांटेजेस दे मे गेट द अकाउंट्स ऑडिटेड. ठीक है? एंड मैंडेटरी किसके लिए है? वी हैव सीन फॉर कंपनीज, फॉर द बैंकिंग कंपनीज, और इफ इट इज रिक्वायर्ड बाय द other statutory, if there is other statutory requirements. Students, ये जो voluntary audit है ना, इसके लिए this is the discussion which is your homework. बहुत easy है that why the NGOs or the clubs, let's say where there is no income as such, no profit as such, why they will get their account audited? Why the trust will get their account audited? है ना? Because any entity था ना, any entity में we have seen companies के लिए तो it is compulsory, but other legal form trust क्यों करवाएगा if it is not, let's say, compulsory, है ना? So voluntary basis पे क्यों करवाएगा? Proprietorship firm या club क्यों करवाएगा? So the answer is given here, and yes, Mayank, होता है. So you need to read these paragraphs, and very interesting कि क्लब में डिफाइन किया हुआ है कि कोल्ड ड्रिंक्स होते हैं या कुछ भी एग्रीकल्चरल प्रॉपर्टी से इनकम आती है, तो उसके लिए होता है. यू जस्ट गो थ्रू दीज पैराग्राफ्स. इन केस ऑफ एनी डाउट आई विल डेफिनेटली टेक देम अप इन द नेक्स्ट सेशन. ठीक है? क्या डाउट है 10th पॉइंट में? So whose doubt is this? Mariam, where audit is of a corporate body confirming the statutory requirements have been complied with. So Mariam is asking to repeat this 10th point. So what we were discussing here, ki kya kya, what is the aspects, है ना? What all aspects are to be covered? So it basically says that, let's say corporate body, if any company is there, है ना? And there are any statutory requirements. I gave you example of Schedule 3 to the Companies Act. So there are disclosure requirements, na? There are a number of disclosure requirements that the companies need to follow. So in that case, if any such statutory requirements are there, so the auditor will consider that also. Mariam, is it clear? Okay. So types of audit is done. Then advantages of audit. This is also your homework. See, advantages of audit of financial statement. Now, by now you all know that who all are the users of audited financial statement, है ना? तो जो users of audited financial statement है, उन्हीं के लिए तो advantages होंगे ना. For example, let me just take you through these points. बहुत simple है, इसलिए I'm taking you through these concepts quickly, and we have in our discussion in the first half of this session, we have discussed all these topics in detail, है ना? कहीं ना कहीं we have discussed them. So we are now just putting together all these topics. See, what are the advantages of audit of financial statement, है ना? So और ये कहाँ से आते टॉपिक? देखो यहाँ पर हमने पढ़ा ना कि वॉलेंट्री भी कुछ एंटिटीज करवाएंगे बिकॉज ऑफ द एडवांटेजेस ऑफ द ऑडिट ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. सो सी, it safeguards the financial interest of person who are not associated with the management. For example, shareholders. देखो shareholders का पैसा कंपनी में लगा है ना, but manage तो management कर रहा है, but shareholder needs to know ना that how their funds is been utilized, whether it has been properly utilized or not. So it safeguards the financial interest of the person who are not associated with the management, the bankers, the financial institution, or the public at large is what? whosoever, so basically the stakeholders, who all are the stakeholders of in the company, the just a moment. The audited financial statement will be useful to them. Okay? Then if the audit has been conducted, it acts as the moral check on employees from committing defalcation or embezzlement. What is defalcation and embezzlement? Misappropriation of cash or misappropriation of funds. Because now employees know कि auditors आ जाएंगे, they'll conduct the audit. So they will be demotivated. Na? It will be a moral check on them. Na? They will not get commit any defalcation or embezzlement. This is what misappropriation of funds. है ना? Next point. It is helpful in settling liabilities for negotiating loans, liabilities for taxes. है ना? For example, if the management has presented that itna is the profit to the tax authorities may not rely on that. The tax authorities may ask for audited financial statement, because it might be possible na, that the management has suppressed the profits in order to pay less taxes. So audited financial statement are helpful in settling liability for taxes, negotiating loan. है ना, ये तो हमने example से ही start किया था. That branch bank manager है, he may ask for what? The audited financial statement. Determining the purchase consideration, for example, in case of mergers and acquisitions. Hana? So what should be the purchase consideration? So audited financial statement are more reliable, right? These are also helpful in settling trade disputes, right? For example, for higher wages and bonus, for example, the employees are asking for bonus. Hana? They are saying, no, management, you have earned the profits, but you are not showing them in your books. Now, what is the option? The management will get the accounts audited. There is more reliance, there is more confidence on the audited financial statement. The same way, in respect of damage suffered by property by fire or some other calamities. For example, there is a fire. So with respect to the insurance claims, the audited financial statement are more reliable, more trustworthy. Since there is a check of internal control also when the auditor is conducting the audit. So that is why the next point comes, that is, it helps in detection of wastages and losses. है ना? क्योंकि आप internal control को भी check कर रहे हो ना. So there will be what? Detection of wastages and losses. Then, if the accounts are audited, the financial statements are audited, it will ascertain whether the necessary books of accounts and records have been kept. Simple. Auditor reviews the existence and operation of various control. Internal control को भी check करता है ना. So this is the point. Then it helps in settlement of accounts at the admission or death of partner. Goodwill calculation के लिए भी the audited financial statement will be more reliable. Further, government may require audited and certified financial statement to give assistance or issue of license. For example, in case of, let's say, MSME. So in case any entity requires a license from the government, so obviously the audited financial statement are more trustworthy, more reliable. Okay? So what are the types of audit we have done, and I've given you a homework for that. Then advantages. It safeguards the financial instrument. It acts as a moral check on employees and students with respect to settlement. See, now for all those who ask me, ma'am, how to learn. So this is the way to remember, to learn. Just summarize it. So with respect to settlement, there are 3 points. That settlement of liability for taxes, for trade disputes, for accounts in case of death, admission of partner. Just summarize, try to summarize. Okay? Then help in detection of wastages and losses. Books helps in determining whether books of accounts are properly kept. Reviews existence operations of internal control and report the weaknesses. And government may require the audit, for example, in case of license. So I hope it is clear. I hope students it is clear the advantages of audited financial statement. So just keep in mind all the users of the audited financial statement. You will be able to quickly learn this or understand this topic. Okay? Is it clear? Quickly send in your replies. Now, the last topic for today, this inherent limitation is a very important topic. I'll take it in the next session now. Students, this is the last topic and a very light topic. So you can know new concept as such. See, it says relationship of auditing with other disciplines. Disciplines is what? Areas or subjects. So if I'm conducting the audit of, let's say, A Limited, then will it be sufficient if I have knowledge of only auditing? So the answer is no. I need to have a knowledge of accounting. The auditor must understand accounting. Why? Because financial statement are what? These are the end result of accounting. If the auditor is not aware about the accounting, he'll not be able to conduct the audit. Because accounting में क्या depreciation ठीक है या नहीं, है ना, आपका provision ठीक है या नहीं, आपकी एंट्रीज जनरल एंट्रीज ठीक हुई है नहीं, आपके लेजर्स करेक्ट है या नहीं, बिकॉज इन्हीं का तो रिजल्ट क्या होता है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट, जिसके ऊपर द ऑडिटर नीड्स टू गिव एन ओपिनियन. सो अपार्ट फ्रॉम ऑडिटिंग, ऑडिटर नीड्स टू हैव अ नॉलेज ऑफ वेरियस एरिया सब्जेक्ट्स. सो व्हाट आर ऑल दोस? अकाउंटिंग, ऑब्वियसली लॉ. व्हाई? जीएसटी भी तो कंपनी पे करेगा, इनकम टैक्स भी तो पे कर रहे हैं, कंपनी लॉ भी तो एप्लीकेबल होगा, है ना. सो ऑडिटर नीड टू हैव एन अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ ऑल दीज थिंग्स ना, तभी तो आई विल बी एबल टू गिव एन ओपिनियन ना वेदर फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. सी क्या होता है? फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट एज अ होल रिप्रेजेंट अ ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू. सो एज अ होल में तो इट कंसिस्ट ऑफ एवरीथिंग ना. शेड्यूल 3 का रिपोर्टिंग रिक्वायरमेंट भी आ जाएगा, जीएसटी प्रॉपर है या नहीं, इनकम टैक्स प्रॉपर है या नहीं. करेक्ट, सिंपल है ना. देन इकोनॉमिक्स, माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स एप्लीकेबल टू द कंपनी, मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स पता होना चाहिए ना इकोनॉमी में क्या चल रहा है, व्हाट इज द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ द इकोनॉमी ऑन द कंपनी. माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स, मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स. देन प्रोडक्शन, है ना, कॉस्टिंग देखने के लिए प्रोडक्शन भी तो पता होना चाहिए. सेम वे फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट, जैसे वर्किंग कैपिटल रिक्वायरमेंट, कैपिटल बजटिंग, है ना, योर वेरियस फाइनेंशियल रेशियोज, इन सबका भी तो नॉलेज पता होना चाहिए ना. देन डेटा प्रोसेसिंग, इफ द कंपनी, द क्लाइंट इज यूजिंग सम लेट्स से सम एसएपी सॉफ्टवेयर, है ना. So data processing, nowadays everything is computerized, volume of transactions are there. So unless and until auditor is able to draw various reports, है ना, so data processing is also required ना. Then statistics and mathematics, डेप्रिसिएशन कैलकुलेशन चेक करना है, मैथ्स तो आना चाहिए. स्टैटिस्टिक, सैम्पलिंग करना है. आई गेव यू एग्जांपल, रिमेंबर कि इंटरनल कंट्रोल अच्छा है तो परचेजेस को सैंपल बेसिस पे चेक करते हैं, तो वेरियस सैम्पलिंग टेक्निक्स भी ऑडिटर लगाएगा, तो ऑडिटर शुड बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट ना. देन बिहेवियरल साइंस, बिहेवियरल साइंस इज व्हाट, एज द नेम सजेस्ट, बिहेवियर. देखो, ऑडिटर नीड्स टू परफॉर्म द ऑडिट, फॉर दैट ही विल ऑब्टेन डेटा फ्रॉम द क्लाइंट हु इज व्हाट, ह्यूमन. Auditor will delegate his work to the articles who are also what, human. Auditor might have to deal with various authorities who are again what, human. So behavioral science, auditor should be able to, he should have the tact of getting the things done from others or getting the information from the others. उसके लिए behavioral science भी तो आना चाहिए. Simple है. So relationship of auditing with other disciplines. Disciplines is what, subject. So basically, ki auditor should have a knowledge of other areas also. Let me just take you through the module. Then this topic will be going to be very much clear to you. See, relationship of auditing with other disciplines. I told you this is what, areas or subject. Just another 5-7 minutes, then I'll end the session. The field of auditing as a discipline in simple words. Just a minute. Involves just review of various assertions. What is assertion? I'll take this up in the next session, both in financial as well as non-financial terms, with a view to prove the veracity. What is meant by veracity? Quickly send in your replies. Accuracy of such assertions and expression of opinion by the auditor. This is quite logical and natural that the function of audit can be performed if and only if the person also possesses good knowledge about the fields in respect of which he is conducting the knowledge, है ना. अब किसी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनी का ऑडिट कर रहे हो तो प्रोडक्शन प्रोसेस का नॉलेज होना चाहिए ना. सो सेम वे सी ऑडिटिंग, अकाउंटिंग एंड ऑडिटिंग का कैसे रिलेशनशिप है. फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स व्हिच आर नथिंग बट अ रिजल्ट ऑफ ओवरऑल अकाउंटिंग प्रोसेस. ऑडिटिंग एंड लॉ, he should have knowledge of what business law affecting the entity, like corporate law, your sales of goods act, income tax, GST, economics, overall economic environment of the client. It will include what macro as well as micro. Behavioral science, knowledge of human behavior is essential for auditor to effectively discharge his duties, because ह्यूमन से ही तो इंफॉर्मेशन लेना ना, क्लाइंट से, ह्यूमन से ही तो काम करवाना ना आर्टिकल से, ठीक है. सो दैट इज व्हाई बिहेवियरल साइंस. स्टैटिस्टिक्स एंड मैथमेटिक्स, स्टैटिस्टिक इज फॉर सैम्पलिंग, मैथमेटिकल इज फॉर लेट्स से वेरिफिकेशन ऑफ इन्वेंटरी और डेप्रिसिएशन कैलकुलेशन. डेटा प्रोसेसिंग, EDP is electronic data processing, so it is developing as a discipline in itself. Then auditing and financial management, so working capital and everything. C, auditing and production. Good auditor is one who understands the client and his business function, all that thing. Okay. Now, students, these points are discussed in detail here. So this is again your homework. Very simple. You can just have a look. See what is written here. See. On the similar pattern, the auditor is also expected to have good understanding about marketing, personnel, and other general business management areas. So basically, all aspects which are having an impact. So he is expected to have good understanding about the marketing, personnel, and other general business management areas also. Clear hai? Tell me, is it simple or not? Electronic data processing, Tasu. ठीक है, is it clear? ठीक है, तो students अभी के लिए I will not take any new topic, but हाँ, quickly we will just go through what we have done today, and I expect that you will be doing the homework that I have given to you, and after the session please go through the module including the illustrations and examples. So what is audit? It is an independent examination of financial information of any entity, whether profit oriented or not, irrespective of its size and legal form, where such an examination is conducted with a view to expressing an opinion thereon. So financial statement should not mislead anyone. So uske liye auditor should satisfy himself that accounts jo hain, these have been drawn with reference to the entries. Entries are supported by sufficient appropriate audit evidence. None of the entries is omitted and vice versa. Information is clear and ambiguous. The financial statement amounts are as per the accounting standards, and financial statement reflect what? A true and fair picture. Objectives kya hai? To obtain a reasonable assurance that financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud and error. Usse kya hoga? Thereby enabling the auditor to express an opinion that whether financial statements are prepared in all material respects in accordance with what? Applicable FRF, and to report and communicate as per SA. Simple. Scope क्या है? First of all, cover adequately all aspects है ना of the enterprise relevant to the financial statement being audited. देखना है कि underlying records. I hope the concept underlying records is clear. ठीक है, and source data. So whether the information contained therein is what? Reliable and sufficient. वो कैसे देखना है? Accounting system को check कर लो, internal control को check कर लो, और कुछ procedures test carry out कर लो. Disclosure को भी देखना है, हाँ देखना है. कैसे देखना है? By comparing the financial statement with the underlying records के properly summarized है नहीं, and management judgment and accounting policies. ठीक है. Anything which fall outside the scope of competence, उसको नहीं करना है. Auditor will not perform. And in case of any constraint on scope of audit, mention that in your audit report. Clear? Aspects to be covered: accounting system, internal control को check करना है. Review the system procedures, whether these are adequate or not, arithmetical accuracy, authenticity, validity, proper distinction between capital and revenue expenditure, whether balance sheet, P&L are in line with underlying. This is underlying, मतलब जिसके basis पे financial statement prepare किए हैं. Verify करो assets को, liabilities को, P&L को. Statutory requirement है तो उसको भी देखो. For example, I gave you example of what? Schedule 3, requirement of disclosure with respect to companies, है ना. And report करो appropriate person को. Type क्या है? It can be required under law, based on obligation, है ना, and voluntary. This is your homework. Simple है. Advantages, just keep in mind all the users, है ना, उन सबको क्या uses होंगे, that are the advantages. And the last topic is what? The relationship of audit with the other disciplines. ठीक है. So students, just a minute. I hope whatever we have done in today's session is clear. But since this is a very new topic for all of you, a very new subject, so it might be possible that you may still have doubt, okay? Or any of your queries still left unanswered. So you can always send in your queries, and it is a request that please go through the module till where we have done. Cover all the topics that we have done, including the illustrations and examples. And yes, Ruhi, this class is recorded, Hana, on your ICAI CATU or your application, Hana, mobile app is also there. So these lectures are very well recorded. You can go through these lectures. Learning कैसे होगा, understanding कैसे होगा, उसके लिए module read करना पड़ेगा, ठीक है? Study hard and study smart. Try to summarize side by side. And for all those who were asking, ma'am, how to get good marks, तो उसके लिए अभी से start करो, है ना? So after the session, please go through the module till where we have done. Do send in your replies whether you have understood today's session, whether you have understood the concept, the objective, and the scope aspects, whatever we have done so far. Okay? Thank you, students, for the extra 15 minutes that you have given me. Good night, and thank you so much. And please do send in your replies whether you have understood today's session or not. Thank you.